Well, I thought you might enjoy taking a look at the finished product before we get started. It is beautiful, it is fragrant, it is flavorful, and in just about a moment, you're going to meet me in the kitchen and we are going to create this for you.
Hi, it's Grandma Roseanne, and today we are going to have Italian Day. This is a long awaited, much requested recipe for my spaghetti sauce. Now, the ones who request it are my husband, all right, because he loves it. So I want to share it with you. I know every family has their own special Italian sauce, they have their special Italian restaurant, but the one thing that my husband actually hates is when we go to an Italian restaurant and the pasta looks beautiful and the sauce is on it, but it all waters down, and at the bottom you've got a pool of liquid under the noodles, and that's just not very good. So the pasta sauce that I'm making here is rich, it's thick, it's flavorful, and it takes hours and hours and hours to make it, but you're not standing here for hours, so don't worry about that. It's just cooking slowly, but the aroma in your home will be unbelievable. Now, this has been a real hard recipe for me to try to do for you because I have never measured it. I have no idea what goes into it in measurements. So I'm going to do my very, very best to tell you measurements, but don't stress. I mean, if you're a tablespoon or a half a cup off, or don't worry, it's still going to be delicious. So what I have done here is I'm heating up a very large pan. I make a huge amount of sauce at one time because it freezes so well. In here, I am going to put in some bacon grease. Now, I would say that's probably about 1.5 tablespoons, and I would say that's probably about 1.5 tablespoons. So I'm going to say I've got about 2 tablespoons of bacon grease in there. Now, the reason you're doing the bacon grease simply is because of the flavor. You get such an amazing, amazing flavor with this. And when I render this, if there's some little bits and pieces of bacon on the bottom, I go ahead and use them because I think they're delicious. So that's going to melt all the way through. And what we're going to do now is we're going to add the onions. Now, this from my kitchen is about 1.5 very large onions. So that I don't make you crazy, I'm going to try to measure it out and see what it really is. That's 1 cup. Do you hear the sizzle? I love that. That's 2 cups. That would be 3 cups of onions for you. Let me just get that all in there. A little bit of a towel here. Okay. Now we want those onions to get nice and golden, to be really tender, and they'll take just a few minutes. It can be on a rather high heat. It doesn't have to be on a low heat. And then after we get these onions to where they're really tender, then we're going to add the garlic. Be very careful not to add the garlic at the same time, simply because your garlic will burn. And that burnt taste is going to permeate through the entire sauce, and you really don't want that. So this is going to just take a few minutes here, and I will be right back as soon as they're tender. All right, it's been about 4 minutes, and I want you to take a look at the onions. See how they have wilted, and they're just kind of starting to turn golden a little bit. That's what you're looking for. So now what we're going to do is now we're going to add garlic. When I have fresh garlic from my yard, I use that, but I'm all out of that fresh garlic. So I'm using the garlic that I buy at Costco. If you want to use regular garlic, fine, that doesn't matter, but I find this is just as good. So what I'm putting in is 2, 3 tablespoons of garlic. And if you're thinking right now, oh dear Lord, that is so much garlic, wait till you see how much sauce this makes, and then you'll understand why we're seasoning so heavily. Now what we're going to do is we're going to let that garlic just saute a little bit. We want to get the sharpness out of the garlic. So just a little bit. Right now, this house is starting to smell really, 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 really good. Is there anything better than garlic and onion smell like? All right, now we're going to put the meat in. You've had enough time for those onions and garlic to kind of get together to become less bitter and more flavorful. I'm using ground beef. Now, you can use whatever you want. You can use ribs, you can use pork, you can use beef in it, you can use anything you want. My family likes a really rich, heavy sauce with ground beef. So I'm going to be putting in about 5 pounds of ground beef. Now, please feel free to cut this recipe way down for your family. But if this takes a long time to make, which it doesn't take a lot of skill, it just takes time, then I want to use my time as effectively as I can. So if I can make a lot at one time and then freeze it, I'm good to go for several meals. All right, that's about 5 pounds there. Let me just kind of wash my hands up. Now, this handy dandy little tool I have found to be really helpful, and it just helps you break up that meat or refried beans or just anything that you want in smaller chunks. It just works really well. So what we're going to do is we're going to brown this, but this is the this is the trick. This is what I want you to pay close attention to. We're going to season the meat now. We're also going to season it after we have the sauces in, but I want that meat to be flavorful. So we're going to start with oregano. A cup in here, and let's just see about how much. Because from a cup, what I would do after stirring this up, what I would do is I would just start pouring. That's about how much I would put in right now. That would be about 1/4 of a cup. Then we're going to want to have some garlic powder, about 1 tablespoon. Salt, yeah, it'd be about 1 tablespoon. And probably 2 teaspoons of pepper. Now, do you see? No, 1 teaspoon of pepper. Now, do you see how flavorful this meat is going to be? I mean, it's just going to incorporate the onions and the garlic and the oregano and the Italian seasoning. All of that's going to be right in the meat. This is really a good sauce, you guys. It really is. You're going to enjoy this. I hope you make it. I hope you do. And the fact that it's not absolute directions with absolute measurements, I hope doesn't stop you, because I'm a cook that really does, I do need the instructions. I don't do really well winging it, so I really need the measurements. But I think even if I didn't have the measurements on this, I'd give it a shot. All right, now this has to brown pretty good. I want pretty much of all the redness out of this. So just give me a couple of minutes and I'll be back. All right, well, the meat is really browned nicely. There's a tiny little bit of red blush in it, not very much, just a little bit. But this is where we start adding all of the tomatoes to it. Now, I'm going to start with is going to be the tomato sauce. And I am using a large can, and I'll tell you in just a minute the size of the can. All right, this is 106 ounces. Then I want to stir that up a little bit. And you'll notice I did not drain the fat off of this, simply because it's just got a lot of flavor in it. It really does. I use a pretty low fat content ground beef, so I'm not really worried about the fat in there. And the little bit of bacon grease that I did use for this amount, it just adds good flavor, so I'm not worried about that. Then I'm going to add 4 cans And this is crushed, peeled tomatoes in puree. And this is 28 ounces. So all 4 cans are 28 ounces. So you want the puree in there. And if you don't find the tomatoes with the puree, that's okay. Just be sure you get the puree in there. And then this is just diced tomatoes in juice. And these were 28 ounces. And now we're going to put in the tomato paste. I'm going to turn this down too. You want to start controlling, because it's been on a pretty high heat the whole time here. Now, these chunks of tomato, with the amount of time that we're going to be cooking these, are going to cook down. So you're not going to be biting into a piece of tomato for the most part. Get that all well incorporated. I love this sauce. I really do. It's really good. I don't even know if this is my sauce or it's a combination of my parents' sauce and my sauce. I don't know. Now, I'm putting in tomato paste. You're going to want tomato paste that's going to help the thickening. And every one of these different tomatoes that I put in are actually giving you an enhanced flavor. And I'm putting in 3 of these. And if you want the best tomato out there, I mean really the best tomato out there, it's the San Marzano. And you can buy those at any grocery store. If you have a decent sized grocery store, they all carry San Marzano. And they're expensive. All right, ouch. They really are expensive. So if I'm making a small amount, I'll use the San Marzanos. But when I'm making a huge amount like this, you know, I don't want my spaghetti to cost us to run up to 35 bucks. So I use the smaller one. Or the less expensive, not smaller, the less expensive. All right, now we're going to incorporate that in there. And then we're going to start adding seasoning. What? You say what? We're adding seasoning. We've already added seasoning. Well, I know, but we seasoned the meat, and now we're going to season the sauce. All right, so here we go again. I would say that was about a half a cup that I put in there. The garlic powder, I'm going to say it's going to be about 1.5 tablespoons. I'm sorry, that was when I said whatever I said it was the Italian seasoning. Then the salt. I'm going to put 1 tablespoon. And pepper, 1 teaspoon. Okay? Now what we're going to do is let this start to come together. Now, I always am of the mindset, waste not, want not. So I know that there's good tomatoes in these cans yet, and I need water in here. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to fill this up, shake it up, and pour it in. That got rid of all the rest of the tomatoes that were in there. There's a lot of sauce that gets caught up in there, so you want to use it all. And I will do the same here, because there's still a lot of sauce in here, and I need water. And how much water? I don't know. I probably filled it up about that much. But really all I did was just really wanted to rinse out the can. Because you're going to look at this and say, Grandma Roseanne, that's all water. That can't possibly end up being good spaghetti sauce. It is. You know why? Because we're going to let this cook down. We're going to let it cook down. And then I'm going to come back and I'm going to show you in another maybe 2 or 3 hours from now how we're going to add more water and more seasoning. And we'll probably do that 2 more times, okay? That is what's going to develop the richness It'll develop the flavors, and oh my goodness, the taste and the aroma is fantastic. So you see on this really big pot, I have made a vat of spaghetti sauce. This will feed my family for several meals, and it freezes beautifully, beautifully. So that's it for now. I'm going to just let it simmer. I'm going to bring it up kind of to a medium boil and then turn it down to a simmer. It literally is going to sit on my stove top at a very low heat, maybe 7 hours, 8 hours, whatever, but for a good long period of time. So I'll come back in a few hours and show you a little bit more. Okay? Well, it's been about 3.5 hours since this has been very slow cooking. So what I'm going to do is just stir it. Look at how thick it is. It is so thick. It's really getting rich. And I'm going to taste it because this is when you're going to want to decide if you need to adjust some of the seasoning. So, just a real quick taste. Oh, good. But what we're going to do now, because it's going to cook like for another 3 hours, but I don't want it that thick. So I've got about 2 cups of water in here that I'm putting in. And then I'm going to create a little bit more seasoning in here. I think it needs a little, I put in 2 cups. I'm going to put another cup of water in. So I'm going to say 3 cups of water for that. As all of this cooks down, all it is doing is it's just increasing the flavor of this so nicely. So now, oh, let me get a measuring cup because I know you're going to want the measurements and I can't do it unless I do it this way. This is going to be about a 1/2 cup. Come on. Actually, I'm going to put in like 1/4 cup. And once I put it in my hand, it would be less than 1/4. I would have put in probably 1/8 cup there. Then we're going to want to have, oh, these jars are so hard to open. I'm going to put in just another couple tablespoons of garlic. Pepper. Oh my gosh, probably a teaspoon again. And probably 2 teaspoons of salt would do it. So we have all of our ingredients in there one more time, and they have gone in with another layer of seasoning. Oh, and I want the garlic powder too. So I would say about 1 teaspoon of garlic powder. So there you've got it. Now this is the end result. This is what this is the last we have to do with it. All we're going to do now is just kind of watch it. I don't want it to dry out too much. I don't want it to get overly thick. So another couple of hours, I'll probably add like 1 more cup of water, and then it's going to be done. I know I'm not going to need any more seasoning, but you taste it as you're going through and see what you feel it needs. You may need a little bit more. The only other ingredient I will add here, and I forgot to get it, so give me a 1/2 second. So what I actually have in here is a full cup of a red wine, and you can use any kind of red wine you want. You use a fairly decent red wine, one that you would be drinking at the table. That's a good judge of this. So I won't be coming back to this anymore until I just take a picture of it being plated. And you will see how absolutely delicious it is. What I have also done is I have started making noodles from scratch. And they're very simple to make, but the quality of the noodle is amazing. So I will put out a video so you'll know how to make any of the pasta noodles and make them just in your kitchen to have with your absolutely beautiful sauce. So enjoy, and please keep in mind, before I sign off here, please keep in mind that if you don't want to make a vat, just cut it down. Just cut it down and you'll be able to make fabulous spaghetti that you don't have, 2 years worth in your kitchen. All right, Thank you. Enjoy.